This Wii U console is currently faulty. It's showing an error message that there's a problem with a disk drive with the error code 160-1400. In this video I'm going to be fixing this console and showing you how you can fix a faulty Wii U that's showing this error message. The Wii U uses a mixture of both Phillips head and tri-wing screwdrivers in variant sizes. So before you start, make sure that you've got a few different screwdrivers available, particularly a tri-wing screwdriver, which is not something that you typically have unless you're working on Nintendo consoles. What I'll be showing you in this video was originally posted on the GB8M forum, and I'll have a link to the forum post in the description, so if you'd prefer a text guide you can go and check that out. So this isn't something that I've discovered, but as I've got a console with this issue I thought it would be useful to show this fix in action. So unsurprisingly you're going to need to open up the console to fix this. I'm going to start by unscrewing and removing the little holder for the CMOS battery. This is the only screw that's visible without removing any covers. You'll need a small Phillips head screwdriver to do this. Next, you'll want to turn the console upside down as most of the screws are on the bottom of the console. With the console in front of you so that you can read the label, the first screws I'm going to remove are the ones on the right hand side. You'll notice there are 3 small black squares evenly spaced down the edge of the console. And these squares are small protective sticky pads that are used to hide the screws underneath. You'll need to carefully lift these up to gain access to the screws below. Make sure you put these somewhere safe because you'll want to put these back on once you've reassembled the console. With those screws removed, the side panel can now be taken off, or as happened in my case, it'll just fall out on its own. With that gone, you'll notice another 3 screws that were hidden underneath the panel, which also need to be removed. Moving round to the bottom edge of the console, which is underneath the front bezel, you'll see there are another 2 of these plastic covers with screws underneath that need removing. It's a good idea as you're going along to make sure that you keep your screws organised, as a mixture of different screws have been used and you'll need to make sure they all go back in the right place. There's one more screw to remove from the underside of the console, and you'll find this one to the left side of the label. This one's bigger than the other screws, and so is the plastic cover, so it should be easy to identify this one when you're putting the console back together. Next, turn the console onto its side so you're looking at the side that originally had the CMOS battery housing in it. You'll find one screw next to the battery slot and another one in between the 2 cooling vents. With all of the screws removed, carefully flip the console over and you should be able to remove the top half of the shell. Take care when doing this as there are a couple of rubber pieces along the one edge which are likely to fall out, as will the fan grille at the rear. The next step is to remove the disk drive and the front bezel, and to do this you'll need to remove the screw on either side of the drive which is holding the bezel in place. Take extra care while removing these screws as I've found them to be extremely difficult to take out, and I have managed to strip one of these screws in the past. When the front bezel's free, you can unplug the power cable and remove it completely. With that out of the way, you can now gain access to all 4 of the screws holding the optical drive in place. Once the drive's unscrewed, you want to carefully start lifting the drive up and flip it over to the right hand side of the console. This is because there's a folded cable underneath. Once the cable's unplugged, you can now completely remove the optical drive. With the optical drive removed, you'll see that there are 4 wires stuck to the metal shielding, and at the end of each you'll find a piece of metal which is used as an antenna. All 4 of these metal pieces can be removed quite easily from the plastic housing they're clipped into, so carefully remove them and for now just push them over the sides of the console. There are 2 screws holding the fan at the rear of the console in place. Remove these 2 screws and carefully unplug the fan and put it to one side. Next, locate the 2 screws holding the fan shroud in place and remove them. As well as being held in place with screws, the fan shroud is also slotted into position, so to remove it you'll need to push it straight back towards the rear of the console, and then you should be able to lift it up. It did take me a while to figure that one out. We're almost there now, we just got to remove this top metal shielding and then we'll be able to access the area that we need. To remove this, you're going to need to go around the outside of the console and remove all of the screws that you can see. When you're doing this, you'll notice that some of them are holding metal brackets in place, so make sure that you keep those brackets and the screws that went with them. All of these screws are accessible, so they're easy enough to remove, it just takes a bit of time to do so. Once all of the screws are out, if you haven't already, you'll want to lift up the bits of tape holding the antenna wires in place so that you can move the antenna wires completely over the side of the console. I didn't do this earlier, but as the wires are stuck to the metal shield, this needs to be done before the shield can be removed. Carefully lift up the metal shield and put it to one side. Be aware that the raised piece of metal sits over the top of the CPU heatsink and can come away from the main shielding. Doesn't matter if it does, but it's better if you can try and keep it in one piece if you can, so you don't have to try and fit it back in later on. And now, after all of that, we can finally get started with what this video is supposed to be about. The area that we're looking at here is to the front of the console, not far from the USB ports. And you can see the socket that we unplugged the optical drive from, along with the system storage, which in this case is a Samsung. The filters are used on the data lines going from the optical drive to the console, so if there's anything wrong with these filters, it effectively breaks the connection from the console to the optical drive, so the two are not able to communicate correctly. And that can then cause the 160-1400 error that we get in on this console. So I'm going to start with CM9, just probing across these 2 points here, see if we get any continuity. And yep, so the bottom pair do have continuity, we can see. If we move over to the top pair of pins and see, yep, and we've also got continuity on those. So CM9 looks good, up to CM10 now. And we don't seem to be getting anything. It might just be that I haven't got the probes in position correctly. They are quite big for this. But if we test the other side of CM10, still not getting anything. Nope, so it looks like there's no continuity across CM10, and what this means is those data lines are not actually going to be making a connection between the console and the optical drive. So now we've identified on this console what the issue is likely to be. I'll now dig out the soldering iron and show you how you can fix it. So I've switched now to the digital microscope, so hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing much clearer. Though I will say you'll have to excuse the frame rate, as I have noticed that this digital scope does tend to stutter quite a bit and drop frames, which is a little bit unfortunate. I'm not really sure why it's doing that, so just keep that in mind if you're wondering why it seems to be stuttering. I think the easiest way to remove a component this small is quite simply to just shove a giant blob of solder over it, and it should just come off into the solder blob. So we'll just heat this up, get some fresh solder on there, and just keep adding more solder until it comes off. While buying a replacement part is always going to be the preferred fix, what I'm going to do here is get some very thin wire and bridge the pads across where the component used to be. Bridging the pads will make the connection so that the data signals can travel between the console and the drive, and in the short term at least, it shouldn't have any negative impact on the console. This is a very fine soldering job, and I find it helps a lot if you pre-tin the pads and the wire. and make sure to use some tweezers or something to hold the wire in place so that you're able to solder both ends. Once the wire's in place, carefully cut the wire and check that each end's secure. Repeat this for the other side, taking care not to desolder the one you've already done. Once you're happy with the soldering, it's a good idea to clean up the flux. I use some IPA with a toothbrush and a bit of tissue. The board all looks clean now, so we'll switch away from this camera and we can start to partially reassemble the console just enough that we're able to test it. Reassembling the console is unsurprisingly the same as the disassembly but in reverse, so I don't really want to spend too much time going over that. At this point here, I've already got the console back into the lower half of the shell with a metal shielding that goes above the motherboard. I'm not going to worry about any of the plastic shroud or anything that goes around the fan. The only things that we need to plug into the board to be able to test it are going to be the optical drive itself, which should be pretty obvious, and also the front panel so that we can actually power the console on. So I'll just get the drive plugged in first. It's a little bit awkward to try and plug this in because it is a very short cable, but once that's done I can just flip that back into position. And actually I probably should have done the front panel first. It's probably a good idea to do the front panel before the optical drive because I'm going to have to move this out of the way so I can actually get access to the connector. I'm not screwing the front panel in position or anything like that, so I'm going to need to be a bit careful with this cable, and it is going to be at a slightly unusual angle because the front panel's not sitting at the angle it normally would. I've got the console ready, I've got the portable monitor plugged back in and set up, so now we've just got to turn the console on and we'll see what it does. It's got to wait a while for it to finish booting. Hopefully the error message won't show up. And as you can see, we've now managed to get to the user select screen and the 1401600 error hasn't shown up. So I think we can say that for this console, replacing that filter and bridging the connections has fixed the issue. I chose to sync up the gamepad just so I could get into the console to go through and have a look at the console's error history. And in here you can just see a long list of that exact same error code, which indicates this has been a problem for a few years now. The first instance of the code dating back to 2020, although it could have been going on for longer than that, given that the Wii U only stores up to 10 error codes. Now I'm confident this console's fixed, I'll be able to start putting it back together properly. As I said earlier, I don't want to spend too long on the reassembly of the console, but I'll just show a bit of sped up footage now of me putting this console back together. I have the footage recorded anyway, and I figure maybe it'll be useful to someone if you're struggling to figure out where something's supposed to go. So this console's all back together and ready to go, and hopefully if you've got a console with this error, you'll be able to fix it like I have done with this one. And before I go, a quick reminder of the link in the description to the GBA Temp forum. There's lots of really cool stuff over there if you've got a Wii U console, so be sure to check that out. I hope you like this video, Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to stick around for the next one.